All right, so buckle up, because today we're diving into some seriously strange territory with the fictional series Lizard Leaks, a Brick Hardcheese Investigation. Specifically, we'll be looking at the episode Alex Jones, the Hollow Earth Swap. Yeah, you heard that right?
It's going to be a wild one. The way this episode mixes real people like Alex Jones with these totally bonkers fictional scenarios, it really makes you think about how we decide what to believe. It's a bit of a funhouse mirror reflection of how we handle information and misinformation.
Absolutely. So, for anyone who hasn't encountered Lizard Leaks before, think hard-boiled detective.
Okay.
Like Superworld where he's seen it all, cynical as hell, but still can't resist poking around the weird underbelly of, well, weirdness. That's Brick Hardcheese, our protagonist.
And he's got a knack for ending up right smack in the middle of the crazy stuff.
Oh, he does. In this case, this Alex Jones, the Hollow Earth swap business, throws him right into the deep end.
Yeah.
It all starts with Max Frampton, a producer at InfoWars, bursting into Hardcheese's office, completely convinced that the Alex Jones on air is a fake, a lizardman imposter.
I mean, can you imagine?
Now Max, he comes armed with what he thinks is irrefutable evidence. A photo of Jones blinking vertically.
Classic reptilian move, right?
Supposedly. And get this, a video of Jones not only praising the government, but also happily sipping a kale smoothie.
Not exactly the firebrand we're used to.
I mean, come on. We're talking about the guy who claimed chemicals are turning frogs gay.
It's almost too good to be true, in a way.
Right. You always have to admire the sheer audacity of it.
It makes you wonder if they're in on the joke somehow.
Maybe. But Hardcheese, he's a pro, so he's skeptical at first.
As he should be.
Of course. But there's a spark of curiosity there. He's dealt with enough bizarre cases to know that sometimes the craziest things turn out to be, well, not so crazy after all.
So naturally, he decides to dig a little deeper.
He goes undercover as a coffee delivery guy to get inside InfoWars HQ. Classic detective work, wanting to observe this new Alex firsthand.
Gotta see if the scales show, right?
Exactly. And what he finds is pretty unsettling. I mean, you have the real Alex Jones, known for his, chaotic, almost manic energy, always ranting and raving.
Right, like he's perpetually plugged into an electrical socket.
That's one way to put it. But this imposter, he's calm, collected, almost eerily polished.
It's like they took the real Alex Jones and put him through some super intense media training program.
Or maybe a reptilian finishing school. But the real confirmation comes when Hardcheese stumbles upon a hidden compartment in Jones's dressing room.
Oh, this is where it gets good.
Imagine a stash of empty skin suits.
Talk about nightmare fuel.
All neatly labeled version A Jones.
Right.
It's like they're not even trying to hide it.
Or maybe they're so confident they don't need to.
Either way, this discovery sends Hardcheese further down the rabbit hole. He follows a lead to an abandoned radio tower.
The classic clandestine meeting spot.
Right. It's practically a trope at this point. And what does he find? A whole group of lizardmen discussing their master plan, Operation Broadcast Blend.
Okay, so what's the plan? World domination, global chaos.
Not quite. They're after something far more insidious.
Go on.
They want to replace all the major conspiracy theorists with their own agents, slowly drip-feeding Hollow Earth propaganda into the mainstream.
So it's not about conquering us, it's about, subtly shifting our reality.
Precisely. One of the lizardmen even says, "We replace their loudest voices. They'll spread our truths for us. By the time humanity realizes, they'll be begging to join us underground."
That's a bit creepy, not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's like they're playing the long game.
Yeah.
They're using our own fears and anxieties against us. Anyway, Hardcheese. He manages to escape this reptilian summit, but not before grabbing a USB drive labeled AlexJonesHollowPlan.mp4.
Incriminating much.
Oh, yeah.
So what's he gonna do with it?
Well, let's just say things are about to get a whole lot more interesting. But we'll have to save that for part 2 of our deep dive.
That ending really leaves you hanging, doesn't it?
It does. 1 minute you're laughing at this crazy lizard people plot, and the next you're like, wait a minute.
Is this actually happening? It starts to feel a little too real.
Right.
Like it makes you wonder about all the information we're bombarded with every day and how much of it is actually, true.
Exactly. And I think that's what Lizard Leaks does so brilliantly. It takes these outlandish ideas and uses them to comment on something much deeper. Like it's a satire, but it's also making us think critically about the world around us.
It's like holding up a funhouse mirror to society. You see a distorted reflection, but it still reveals some uncomfortable truths.
Totally. And the way they use Alex Jones, a figure already associated with conspiracy theories, it further blurs those lines between satire and reality.
It's almost like they're saying, hey, if you're willing to believe this, what else are you willing to believe?
Right, and the scary thing is, the lizard people's plan in this episode isn't about brute force or anything like that.
It's much more insidious.
They're trying to blend in,
Yeah,
to become indistinguishable from us.
it's like a virus, slowly infecting the host.
Exactly. It's that classic idea of the frog in boiling water. You don't realize the danger until it's too late.
And that's happening with information, too. We're constantly being bombarded with different narratives, different agendas. It's hard to know what to believe.
It is. And that's why critical thinking is so important. You have to question everything.
Don't just accept things at face value.
Right. Do your own research. Consider multiple perspectives.
And be wary of simple explanations for complex problems.
Because those simple explanations often lead to scapegoating and division.
Which is exactly what the lizard people are counting on in this episode.
They're using our own fears and anxieties against us. But I think one of the things I appreciate about Lizard Leaks is that it doesn't just present a bleak dystopian view of the world.
It also offers a sense of hope.
Right. Because Brick Hardcheese, even though he's cynical and world-weary, he still believes in truth. He's still willing to fight for it.
He's like a beacon of light in a world of shadows.
That's a great way to put it. And in a way, he represents the best of humanity. That stubborn refusal to give up on the truth, even when it's hard to find.
And even when it's surrounded by lizard people.
Especially when it's surrounded by lizard people.
So, what do you think the takeaway is for our listeners?
That's a good question. I think it's a reminder that we all have a responsibility to be critical thinkers, to be aware of the forces that are trying to manipulate us.
And to be willing to stand up for what we believe.
Even if it means going up against a whole army of lizard people.
It's funny, isn't it? Like you start watching Lizard Leaks and you're like, oh, this is ridiculous, lizard people, come on. But then you get sucked in and you start thinking, hold on, maybe there's something to this.
Yeah, it's really sneaky how it works its way into your brain. They do a great job of balancing that humor with some pretty thought-provoking stuff.
Totally. Like, even though it's a comedy, you can't help but feel a little uneasy when Hardcheese exposes the lizardmen and everything goes haywire. InfoWars imploding, people questioning everything. It makes you think about what would happen if something like that actually happened.
It's a reminder that even the craziest ideas can have real-world consequences.
Exactly. Like, misinformation spreads so easily these days. It's like a virus.
And it can be really hard to tell what's true and what's not.
So what do we do?
Well, I think that's what this episode is trying to tell us. We need to be more discerning, more critical.
Question everything.
Exactly. Don't just accept things at face value. Do your own research. Look at things from different angles.
And don't fall for those easy answers, those simple explanations that seem to make sense but actually just oversimplify things.
Right, because those simple explanations often lead to blaming and dividing people.
Which is exactly what the lizard people want in this episode.
It's like they're feeding off our fear and uncertainty.
So we have to be smarter than that.
We have to be willing to dig a little deeper, to challenge our own assumptions.
And to be open to the possibility that we might be wrong.
It's not always easy, especially when we're surrounded by so much information all the time.
But it's worth it.
It is, because the truth matters.
It does. And the more we question things, the closer we get to finding it.
And maybe, just maybe, along the way we'll even have a few laughs.
Because even when things seem bleak, it's important to remember that humor can be a powerful weapon.
Absolutely. So yeah, Lizard Leaks might be a fictional show, but I think it has a lot to teach us about the real world.
It's a reminder that we all have a responsibility to be critical thinkers, to be aware of the ways in which we're being manipulated, and to stand up for what we believe in.
Even if it means facing down a bunch of lizard people.
Especially then.
Exactly. Well, I think that about wraps it up for our deep dive into Lizard Leaks, a Brick Hardcheese investigation.
Thanks for joining us.
And remember, keep questioning, keep laughing, and don't let the lizard people get you down.